Huh. According to the in-game timer, it took me a solid 94 hours and 50 minutes to reach the end of Persona 5. I enjoyed my time with the game. It was well written, I love the way it's structured, and it looks and sounds like nothing else on the market. The game's atmosphere is just way out there, so wildly different from any other game bar maybe the other Persona games that came before it, and even then, whew, wow. But here's the thing. When the game drew to a close, I put the disc back in its case and I didn't even want to look at it again. I was tired of the combat, of the final boss fakeouts, of the final dungeon that took me 8 straight hours in a single day to finish, of all of the cool revelations and moments in those last few hours that I can't mention on YouTube or else Atlas will hunt me and my family down, meant nothing. There's only so much you can subject a tired mind to before it just ceases to care. Is length the problem? No, it's not. I've dumped far more time into games like Dark Souls and Overwatch, and they're still really fun for me. Well, okay, I'm a bit burned out on Overwatch at the moment, but at least that game hooked me for a solid 192 hours before managing that, and I'll probably be raring to go again in like a week or two. That's more than double my time of Persona 5. Hell, I'm still finding time here and there to explore a bit more Breath of the Wild. I guess that might have more to do with me picking up a Switch and being able to play it anywhere now, but even now that I've started a new save file, I'm still finding new stuff and I'm still engaged. I'm still having fun. This isn't my point. The question we're asking here is, what's the deal with Persona 5 fatigue? No, stop that. The great folks over at Extra Credits coined the phrase awesome per second, which I'll rip off wholly here to explain this conundrum. In fact, I'll admit to ripping off this phrase in the past, see my Phantom Pain review. Basically, by awesome per second, they mean a metric of how often a game is engaging to the player. A phenomenal 2-hour game that draws your attention and engages you 100% of the time is far better and more memorable as a whole than a subpar 50-hour game. This is not to say that long games don't have a place, and not to say that they can't achieve great awesome rates, if you will. But the longer a game is, the harder it is to keep the player engaged. When it comes to games with really long runtimes, good awesome rates are very rare and very hard to pull off. To date, the only long games I've played to pull this off perfectly are Dark Souls and Deus Ex. They both do it through exceptional level design that always keeps the players thinking, and Dark Souls in particular does it by making every single player decision matter. You make one wrong move in that game and... yeah. So how does this all relate to Persona 5? Well, it turns out that Persona 5's awesome rate is really not great. I think the issue is that the game is divided into one half that I really enjoy, and another half that was cool for a little while but then got on my nerves. The half that I really enjoyed was the real-world segments, where you're deciding how to spend your time, cultivating social links, doing activities, and generally enjoying everything Tokyo has to offer. I love the characters that Atlas sets you up with. They all have interesting problems that you need to solve, and they tie with the dungeon crawling part of the game in really interesting and unique ways. Like, for example, social linking with the local doctor gets you cheaper and better healing items. Or if you befriend the shogi player, you learn valuable strategies in battle. Even if the social links weren't well written, which they most definitely are, they would be a good way to incentivize the player to get involved with the game's world on a more social level. And I love the tension that comes with having to decide how to spend your time. The most exciting moment of the entire game for me came when I didn't know if I'd be able to max out that last social link before starting the final dungeon. And being able to max that link out at the 11th hour felt immensely gratifying. I really wish the other half of the game was that gratifying, but it's not. Not by a long shot. As someone who played Persona 3 and most of 4, I can say that the shift away from procedurally generated dungeons was a very wise move, but they didn't make the combat much more engaging than the previous games, and for me, that's a pretty big issue. My problem is that once you figure out the weaknesses of all the monsters in the area, you may as well be done with that area. Every fight beyond that is a waste of time, especially if it's an enemy with a lot of health or defense. You're not in danger, but you're not having a lot of fun dealing with enemies either. And this is where that awesome per second thing rears its head. Once you figure out weaknesses, player engagement drops like a stone. Gameplay goes from interesting social conversations and activities to sneak, win battle, sneak, win battle, solve puzzle, sneak, win battle, find treasure, sneak, you get the idea. Imagine that loop for 8 straight hours in the final dungeon, and you can begin to see where my issues with the game lie. It doesn't matter how good the story or music is in that 8 hours. If you make the player go through the same generic loop for that amount of time, they're going to get tired of it. Persona 5's awesome rate often hits rock bottom whenever it reverts to that gameplay loop, and it reverts to it a lot. And I'm not sure this is an issue they can fix in future games without either making the dungeons much shorter or changing the combat entirely, and I imagine both are incredibly hard for a team like Atlus to do. And that's a bummer. When Persona 5 stories get going, they really get going. This game's team knows what they're doing when it comes to writing and storytelling. Hell, I'll give the game some credit. I loved being able to recruit enemies. It kinda had that Undertale charm going for it by forcing you to pay attention to the enemy's personality and quirks. But when you're getting less experience for it and your Pokédex starts filling up, the incentive to do so vanishes, and we're right back to sneak, win battle, sneak, win battle. Perhaps if Persona 5 put more effort into incentivizing that kind of play, we'd end up with a much richer product. Maybe do what recent Pokemon games have been doing and reward the player equal experience for catching Pokemon and defeating them. Maybe you can gain a reputation around the dungeon and enemies will start instantly befriending you or running away from you, or maybe they can start unlocking doors or warn you about ambushes or act as double agents, Shadow of Mordor style, I don't know. Point is, they could have done this half of the game much better, and they chose not to. And that led to me getting tired of this game to the point of not even wanting to give the much touted New Game Plus a try. So that's the deal with Persona 5 fatigue. Still a great game, still lots of things to love, but it burned me out very easily. I'm getting a lot of negative comments for this, aren't I?